This presentation will restructure the premises and conclusions presented in the publication All Animals Are Equal by Peter Singer. I will then produce a few counterarguments based on the knowledge of the American diet, the lack of human equality in modern society, and the statistics of non-animal testing. I will sum up with a few final words and give a final all-encompassing conclusion. So, who is Peter Singer? According to his credits on procon.org, where he is quoted opposing several hindrances to animal rights, he is a current professor of bioethics at Princeton University, as well as an author and an editor. In several of his published works, he takes on the role of a non-human rights activist. Many who identify as non-human rights activists view him as a patriarchal figurehead in the realm of the movement. He's also appeared in several documentaries discussing the cause. The overall conclusion that Singer presents is nearly the same as the title, but with a little more elaboration. Singer implies that, as sentient beings, capable of thinking, all animals are equally deserving of proper and considerate treatment, with respect to their needs. We're not going to discuss his reasons for claiming that all animals are sentient in the following slides, so here I will add that this is based on the collective research and observation of differing species. Here are the premises that as they relate to human rights. Equality is redefined during any liberation movement, which expands the human and social capacity for morality. The liberation of blacks and women have proven that equality is not equal rights, but the equal consideration of human animals, which has been provided with differing rights, such as affirmative action on both counts and reproductive rights for women. Finally, as is illustrated here by thinkvegan.net, racism is speciesism, and therefore speciesism is racism and should be given the same attention as racism. Okay. The sheer number of premises, in this case, make for a very strong argument. While some of these premises are deductive in nature, the overall argument is inductive. Here are the premises that acknowledge scientific research. Equality is a moral high ground that cannot be defined by either scientific proof or genetics. Also, eating meat is an unethical choice because scientific research has found soy protein capable of providing all the necessary amino acids we previously sought in meat consumption. In regards to scientific research, Singer also frequently references the unethical treatment of animals in lab experiments, but this is more as a support to his philosophical premises, which are as follows. Superior intelligence no more gives one the right to exploit the human animal for the purposes of entertainment, social advancement, or profits than the non-human animal. Non-human animals share with us the ability to suffer as well as experience joy, and this deserves consideration in the treatment of these creatures. I am going to call my response to Singer counter-arguments because while they may not agree entirely with what Singer has proposed, they do assert a different perspective that does not entirely agree either. They don't entirely disagree. They don't entirely agree either. And are entirely based on an assembly of facts that support my own personal opinion. The most important of all of these issues, to me, relates to the vegan diet. This graph that was taken directly from the USDA website claims that 93% of soybeans production in the US in 2012 was genetically modified. While this is great for corporate agriculture, we still don't know the full effects that GMOs have on our bodies. And coupled with the pesticides and herbicides that are used in conventional farming, that is a hell of a lot of extra compounds in our bodies. This leads me to my next premise in this argument. Not only does the support of small-scale, family-run local farms support local economy, they are also more likely to practice sustainable and organic methods of farming in the terms that we originally recognized them, such as natural pesticides and herbicides and grass-fed livestock. Eating reduced portions of meat from quality sources, like your local family farms, has been proven in clinical trials to reduce the same health risks that a vegan diet can when replacing the excess meat with cereals, fruits, legumes, nuts, and vegetables, as opposed to complex or non-complex starches, simple starches, and sugars. Additionally, when the environmental impacts and compromise of non-human rights are discussed regarding agriculture, it is most frequently corporate factory farms that bring us name brands such as Tyson and Purdue. Vegans are known for opposing many products based on the use of animal byproducts to produce them. What is not widespread knowledge, however, is that many mundane objects that we take for granted use animal byproducts, such as gelatin, as is the case in the telephone, and compounds used to make common types of wax, such as those in crayons, antiseptics, like soaps, hygienic products like shampoo, and plastics. These are extracted after an animal is slaughtered, however, and the treatment of these animals never has to be unethical. In the case against the vegan diet, I find that the real enemy of non-human rights and the purveyor of speciesism is factory farming. The need for the economically viable means to produce a large quantity of product in this industry almost always means compromising ethics. We're focusing on non-human rights now, but this is not the whole of the injustice involved in factory farming. We will now examine a case for human rights as it relates to non-human rights. Meet Jane Goodall. She's a famous ethnologist and author who is known all over the world for her work with apes and chimps. She's also been, in her lifetime, recognized as a major figurehead in the area of non-human rights. She is also a woman, which means she is treated differently than a man, with the same credentials in the scientific community. In many tribal and religious-based societies, and to some extent because of this, her rights are also restricted. Why is this significant? Jane Goodall is also a human, and humans are the only voice that non-humans have. When the rights of humans are restricted, the rights of non-human animals are directly affected. As an example, during the Bush administration, the Patriot Act was passed, which restricted certain rights of expression and assembly. During this time, many activist movements, including those defending the non-human rights, were silenced and oppressed by public labeling of these organizations as terrorists. We can assume that if the former is true, that it also serves as true that an expansion of human rights leads to an equal expansion for those of non-humans. Look at the same example and consider this. Without the labeling of activist movements as terrorists, those who are active in the organization have no fear of speaking up, and they regain their credibility in the public eye. What we can deduce based on these premises is that human rights must be properly established and supported in order for non-human rights to be successful. The less credibility depends on race, gender, and socioeconomic status, the more it is based on logic and credentials, and that leads the way for a future of awareness and change. Scientific testing is something I was most interested to learn more about as someone who aspires to be part of this in some way. I wanted to make sure I got all of the facts before drawing conclusions, and here they are. Research on animals predates the Common Era by about 500 years. Early scientists did not just experiment on animals. They also collected volunteers during times of epidemic and even experimented with dangerous diseases and cures on themselves. Despite the continued high volume of animals used for testing, including primates. Researchers have been wise for the inaccuracies for years. The mammals we test on, including mice and primates, which share the highest percentage of genetic materials with humans, also respond different to disease and methods of cure physically, metabolically, and biochemically. So let's look at some more harrowing facts regarding the lack of ethical treatment toward non-humans that also come with a very exciting bright side. And thank you to District 9 for providing a perfect graphic for this portion. Most importantly, non-animal test materials have been available for a long time, likely since Henrietta Lacks in the 1970s. These are human cells, and their only alleged drawback is that they don't present a whole model. A whole model has other means of being attained, like adult volunteers who are afflicted with the illness and are seeking new treatment options. The accuracy of these materials is a superior 76 to 84% as compared to the 46 to 50% of animal testing. This has led to the harm of humans, as well as the abandonment of potentially useful drugs. Additionally, these materials are just as easy to procure, less expensive in that regard, and clearly the more ethical choice. So what is the most significant violation of non-human rights that deserves the immediate attention of activists? The transition to non-animal testing as a baseline is a good start for the progression of animal rights because of the ethical value and the progression of society due to the credibility and economic viability. It is a goal that can be achieved on the short term. There is more that deserves mentioning and clarifying on this subject. It has been observed historically by many sociological authors that the non-human rights movement has long been championed by females due to their bond of interlocking oppression. It is for this reason that women who are involved with the non-human rights movement are also often involved in the feminist movement. Whether they came to this conclusion of importance from one or the other first. Many modern feminist writers, however, are criticizing the sexual exploits of women within the non-human rights movement. And this is reasonable. Why fight to lift the oppressions of non-human animals through the use of human-animal oppression? Those who consent to use their bodies and femininity, and those who support them, claim that sex sells, and this is unacceptable and has no root in logic. Whether one has personal standards of modesty or sexual freedom, as a human, these should never be exploited for the gains of anyone or anything. I can't help but feel as though we will continue to fail in our efforts to promote non-human rights if equality in the social structure of the genders is never amended. So, where do we go from here? Is there any hope for us? For the non-human rights movement? There's always hope in education. Education should be the centerpiece in any rights group, but on a much larger scale than it is currently facilitated. It is not enough to share information on specialized websites to promote your cause. It is important to champion critical thought and relevant subjects in schools and institutions. As activists, concentrate on the financial burden of education and making that more manageable so that more of us are educated. Focus on every classroom having the necessary materials for every kind of learner. Go to any country or area of the world in need of social reform for human rights. You will find the citizens strive to be educated. That we want this without ever knowing what we are truly missing speaks volumes about humanity. We are able to observe as children that knowledge is power. It provides us with empowerment, resources, and the skills we need to survive and thrive. With a proper education to all comes a broader sense of human morality, more established personal freedoms, and the feelings of gratitude that inspires the type of gentrification that spawns movements like non-human rights.